All the arrays we've made so far have been one-dimensional. That is, whether the elements within the array are referenced by name, as in an associative array, or by number, as in a numeric array, all the elements are laid out in a straight line. It is possible in PHP and other scripting and programming languages to create what is known as a multi-dimensional array. This allows us to structure our data in more useful ways. Let's take a look at an example and see how this works. Say if we wanted to store an array containing all the names of the books on our bookshelf, or a small sample of them in this for the sake of our example. We could simply make an array and add all the titles straight after the first open bracket of the array, as we've been doing before. However, if we wanted to split the array up into sections, what we would do is to create a multi-dimensional array, which is simply an array of arrays. So, in this case, let's say we had the fiction first, then what we'd do is we'd open one array, then straight away the first element in that array is going to be another array. This may look a little confusing, but once we come to reference it, it will all become clear. Let's put in some titles here. So that's our first inner array. We close that bracket, we put a comma, and we move on to the next element of the outer array, which is also going to be an array. So every element within this array is going to be another array, for the sake of this example. Now it might be easier if we put this array on the next line and bring it into line with the other array. This is not, and I must stress, this is not for the sake of PHP deciphering our script. This is simply for the sake of looking back at it as human beings and being able to read quickly and easily what's going on, so that we don't end up going off the side of our text editor here, so it's hard to read, and so that we can see that these arrays are one on top of each other, so that it's easy for us as programmers to look back and understand what we were doing. In this array we're going to store some non-fiction books. So just two in there, and then we close the bracket for this array, then we're going to put in another bracket. And the reason for that is that we open one bracket here, and this array has contained both these arrays, and although we've closed this bracket to end this array was started, and we need to tell PHP that that's the end of the array there. The end of that line is semicolon, and then we move down. You'll notice that the reason we can treat this whole line here as simply one line is that PHP will consider everything one line until it reaches the semicolon. That's why there's no problem about, say, splitting this text over two lines. Now let's see how we reference such an array. Use our trusty echo command, and we're going to reference books 0, 1. Now this is very similar to referencing a normal array, but we simply put the outermost array first, and then the inner array. So in this case, element 0 of the outer array, which will be this array, and then element 1 of the inner array, which will be this element here. Let's save that and see what that looks like in the browser. It's echoed Frankenstein. as we can see, element 0 and then element 0, 1, Frankenstein. Now, we could of course split this into as many dimensions as you like. I'll just show an example with 3, and although you can continue with more 4, 5 or 6 dimensions, generally not going to come across use for more than 3. So let's just show a quick 3-dimensional example. We're going to split this array here into genres, let's say. So we're going to put another array in here, and let's put some more titles in here, some more science fiction titles. And we're going to pop another array on here. Now, what have we done here? So I've opened the first array, open an inner array, and then we have an inner array within that, which consists of 3 elements, and then we have another array which consists of 2 elements. Then we close 2 lots of brackets here, because we're closing both this array and this middle array. Let's see if we can find how to reference, for instance, Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep? We'd need the outer array, first element, which would be 0, then the middle array, first element, also 0, and then we want the third array here, which will be 2. Let's save that and make sure that works. Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep? Perfectly possible to make your multidimensional arrays associative. So in this case we could say fiction, that's correct symbol, and we could say sci-fi. And here, let's bring that over there so it's underneath the sci-fi, and we'll say horror here. And for this one we're going to say non-fiction. So then when we come to reference our arrays, we're going to have to say fiction for instance horror element 1, which will be the second element here. Let's make sure that one works, and we'll refresh the browser. Dracula, just as we thought. So here we can see that multidimensional arrays are a good way of storing more complex structures within an array. We can also see that we can use associative elements within our array structure. Once again, I suggest you play with this because, again, this is a little bit more to digest than some of our previous movies and chapters. So once you've had a look at that, we'll move on to the next movie.